Hello, and welcome back to Storyphile, where we discuss all things stories, including books, movies, TV shows, and games. So today I'm going to be doing a video about apps. I have tons of apps on my phone, and lots of them have to do with books or movies or TV shows. So today I'm going to go over my top 9 apps that I use for consuming stories, what I like about each one, what I don't like about each one, and my rating out of 5 for each one. So the first one I'm going to start with is the Kindle app. I don't use the Kindle app very often because I am a huge believer in using the public library, but occasionally things aren't there for the public library or you want to support independent authors. So Kindle is a fantastic app for this. It's one of the most well-designed reading apps I've ever seen. The pros, it has great annotation abilities. It can sync across devices, so you can be in the same place in the same book on different devices, like on a tablet or on your phone or on the computer or whatever. It has tons of different settings as far as like size of the font, spacing between characters, the background if you want dark or night or sepia or green or whatever. Kindle Unlimited is an awesome deal. I don't have it, but my father-in-law does, where you pay a set fee per month and get a bunch of free books and you can just return them when you're done. And then also the recommendations on Kindle are pretty good. I haven't ever gotten anything because of a recommendation, but they definitely look interesting. So all big fans of that. Literally my only con for Kindle is you can't buy books from the app. Supposedly you can, like on Androids, but I have an iPhone and you can't, and I understand it's some sort of like issue with Apple, like an Apple policy prevents this, but it's still very annoying that you have to go to a computer to buy the book to send to the Kindle app. You can't just like buy the book from the app like you would do at the library. So that's a little bit frustrating. But overall, Kindle, fantastic app for reading, and I would give it a 4.5 out of 5. The next app is Overdrive/Libby. I use Libby, not the Overdrive app, because the interface on Overdrive is horrible, at least last time I saw it. So I use Libby, and I think Libby is the best book app. Like, just spoilers ahead, it's amazing. It's extremely user-friendly, has audiobooks and ebooks. You have the ability to manage your hold where you can suspend it. Like if your book comes in and you're not quite ready for it yet, you can suspend it, like put it off for a couple days or a week or whatever, but still stay first in line, which is awesome. The filters that you can use to get exactly what you're looking for are really, really specific. And a cat has arrived as usual. You also get to sample both ebooks and audiobooks before checking them out, which is fantastic and I love. So you can listen and see if you even like the book, or if you like the narrator. You can flip through like a comic book or whatever and kind of check that out before actually checking it out on your card. The home screen is very user friendly and very just pleasant to look at. It has lots of useful things, like here's all the books that are currently checked in that you can get without a wait at all. And then you can adjust the reading speed when you're listening to an audiobook down to as specific as I've ever seen an audiobook be able to adjust it. I haven't used this feature, but I've like messed around with it just for fun, and it's very impressive. So if you need something sped up or slowed down, really to any degree, that is there. So all you need is a library card, and your library has to have an agreement with Overdrive, but otherwise, like, it's amazing. The only con I put here, and this is pretty minor, is it has kind of a confusing like search menu. Like when you search, sometimes there's just some confusion when you're like typing something. It might not come up with exactly what you want, but that's really, really nitpicking. Libby, easily 5 out of 5, like one of the best apps I've ever used in any kind, and definitely the best book app in my opinion. A very, very similar app is Cloud Library. I'm a little bit newer to this one, haven't used it quite as long, but it's basically the same thing as Libby. It has audiobooks, like I said. There is a sample for audiobooks, just like Libby, so you can listen to a bit of the book before, so you can see if you like it and you like the narrator. It's also really easy to see who the narrator is, so if that's something important to you, like I'm reading the Dresden Files, and I would not listen to it read by anybody but James Marsters, so I like seeing right at the top, like, read by James Marsters, up there right next to the author author name, versus on Libby, it's usually at the bottom, like in the details, you have to scroll through, but Cloud Library, it's right there at the top. So that's a really nice feature for audiobooks. Also has lots and lots of settings, just like Libby, that you can customize for exactly what you want. The cons, the filters sometimes are a little bit confusing. There is an option where you can suggest books, but if you have that clicked on, it like shows you everything you can suggest in addition to everything that's available. As I said, there is a sample for audiobooks. There's not a sample for ebooks. So if you want to check out an ebook, you can't see it ahead of time without actually checking it out, which I don't think is normally an issue because I believe you have like unlimited things you can check out on Cloud Library, but just if you want to quick glance at something, you do have to go through the whole process of checking it out before you can actually like look at it at all, which is a little bit frustrating. So I give Cloud Library 4.5 just for those two minor things, but still definitely a very solid app. I usually check both Libby and Cloud Library for something before buying it because chances are one of them will have it. The next app is Hoopla. I'm extra new to this one. I just started using Hoopla about 2 months ago. The biggest pro of Hoopla by far is that there is no wait. I don't know exactly how this app works, but you don't have to wait at all. So this is actually how I read the last 3 Avatar comics that I talked about in my last video. I don't have copies of them, and the library editions are really expensive. So as I'm waiting for my omnibus editions to come out, I've been reading them on Hoopla. So it's literally just like check out and then you have it immediately, which is awesome. There's also not just books, there's also music and movies and TV shows. I've never used any of these because I have Apple Music, so I haven't really needed to like check out music. And then movies and TV shows, I don't really want to watch movies on my phone, but if that's something that you're okay doing and you like, then Hoopla would be a great option for that. It also has an incredibly advanced search that is very helpful for tailoring the app to your needs. The biggest con that I've seen from Hoopla is there is a limit to how many items you can check out. So the library that I'm affiliated with, you can only check out 5 titles. So that includes like music albums or TV shows or whatever, like it all counts toward the 5. So when I was reading the Avatar comics, each one comes in 3 volumes. So I had to like strategically check them out so I could actually read them all in the same month. And I used all of my 5 items for Hoopla like last week before even the month was half over because it just goes by so quickly. I thought originally that there was only like 5 for everybody, but then another YouTuber said that he got 50. So I was like, what? So I guess I don't know if it's like how the library pays or what. So that's definitely the biggest downside. You do have to plan it ahead of time. There are no samples for anything, which just is the worst because if you already have a limit to how many things you can check out and you can't sample anything, like I feel like a lot of people probably just like waste their items because you check out an ebook and you realize you don't like it and you turn it back in, oh well, or you check out an audiobook and you don't like the narrator, you have to turn it back in, oh well, versus like Libby and Overdrive, you turn it back in and it's like, okay, no skin off my back, no problem, just get a new one. So that's a little frustrating, the combination of the limited items plus not being able to sample any of them before you check out. But the no wait is definitely a huge perk. So I gave Hoopla a 4 out of 5. The no wait and the addition of like movies, books, movies, TV shows, and music is definitely a huge thing Hoopla has going for it. It's just those other things kind of hold it back from being quite as strong as the other 3 I've mentioned. So those were all the apps I have as far as actually reading and consuming books. So now I'm going to talk about 2 apps that you use for logging books. So the most famous one is Goodreads. First, I'll start with some pros of Goodreads just because we got to start positive. The barcode scanner of Goodreads is actually pretty cool. Like if you just like scan the barcode of a book and add it to your list that way instead of having to search for it, that's a pretty cool feature I haven't seen in a lot of other apps. It also kind of functions like social media, which is really nice. I know that that's kind of like what we do here on BookTube and like Bookstagram, but I think it's cool to actually have an app that's like solely just dedicated to books. The social media aspect doesn't even work, but we're staying positive, right? And also being able to see the distribution of reviews I think is really interesting. I have another app that does this similarly here in a minute, but it doesn't just show you like this book is rated like 2.7. It'll show you how many people rated it, each 1 through 5, and you get to see like a little chart of that. So I think that's pretty cool. So you can see like something landing at 3 because everybody rated it 3 versus something landing at 3 because half the people rated it in 5 and half the people rated it as 1. That's a very different kind of book. So I think it's cool to get to see that. It also syncs with Kindle because they're both owned by Amazon. So I like that when I've read something on Kindle, it'll like update it on Goodreads and vice versa. Now onto the cons. And there are a lot of cons. So just hang tight. I'm going to try to get through them quick. So con number one, the search engine on Goodreads is absolutely terrible. It is so terrible. I could not even put into words how terrible it is. Just the algorithm for pulling up the correct search results is so bad. You find the most ridiculous things that are not remotely related to whatever you typed in. Thing two, and for Goodreads being a social media app, there's not really a good way for people to be social. So like when you scroll through the feed, you don't get to actually see like people say anything. You just see the updates of like this person started this or finished this or was on page this or reviewed this, which is good. But there's not like a place to discuss books, which is one of the reasons I started this channel, because that's not something you can do on the app. There is like a group section, but I still have not figured out how to use them, and I consider myself pretty tech savvy, so the groups section of the app, the interface there is just very it's not user friendly at all. So that makes it very difficult to, again, like discuss anything on the app. People have literally been begging for us to be able to give half-star ratings for years, and it has never happened. Like, that's not that weird of a request. Almost every other app that I can think of that has any sort of rating system, you can give half stars. So I'm going to give Goodreads a 3 out of 5. I feel like that's kind of generous. There are some good things, definitely for tracking books and stuff. It's really good, but for any kind of social aspect or for trying to find anything new, it sucks. So I'm giving it a 3 out of 5. In my preparation for this video, I actually discovered another comparable app to Goodreads thanks to another YouTuber whose video I will link in the description. And she talked about Storygraph, or the Storygraph. So I just downloaded it, and so I've only used it for a couple days, but I am really, really impressed by it. It has a lot of features that Goodreads does not, and fixes a lot of things that I just complained about. So some of the really good perks about Storygraph, the recommendations tab is really good, because when you first get on the app, you are able to specify what kinds of genres you like to read, you do not like to read, what kinds of things are important to you in a story, like do you like plot-driven, character-driven, what kinds of things do you not like. So I don't like horror and graphic sex, so I was able to just like automatically eliminate anything that's tagged as having that in it. So that's really nice, because there is kind of sort of that on Goodreads, but not like to the extent that there is on the Storygraph. You can also have content warnings on the books. I don't know why this isn't like universally applied to books in general, but I think it is nice on there that the readers can actually submit content warnings for other readers, so you can see if there's anything you don't want to read before you actually pick up a book. So fantastic, like that being there. You also can see your stats for the books. I think Goodreads might do this on their website, but I haven't used it in a while. So not only do you get to see like a list of all the books you've read, you also get to see, do you prefer fast-paced or slow-paced? What kind of genres do you read? Which authors do you read the most? What's the page count of books that you like to read? So there's nice little handy graphs in there. You can just kind of get like a bird's eye view of all the different things that you're currently into. One more really awesome thing about the Storygraph that I really like is guided reviews. I did not think I would find this as helpful as I do. So on Goodreads, when you go to leave a review on a book, it's literally just like a text box, which, to be fair, that's like where I think what most review places have. Like when you go to write a review on something, there's just like a blank box and you just go. But what I really appreciate about the Storygraph is it has like specific questions that you answer to help you write an actually helpful review. And then there's also a text box for if you want to add anything. So it will say like, does this have diversity? Does this focus on this? Does this focus on this? Would you consider it this? What kind of mood is in the story, like so that way you can, if people don't want to read something dark and you say it's dark, then they can know not to read that. So it's really helpful and get in like a very quick way for other readers to flip through and just flip through to scroll through and see if this is actually something they'd enjoy. And then if they want to read more, you can also leave like a traditional review. So I really appreciate that. So far, the only thing I haven't liked about the Storygraph is there's still no discussion areas. Like, I just complain about Goodreads. That's the only thing, though. Like, otherwise, the app is fantastic. It's very easy to use. You can also just export your entire Goodreads library, so you don't have to, like, put in all the books that you've read or want to read. You don't have to add them all again. It'll just import them for you. So that's awesome. So I definitely give Storygraph a 5 out of 5. Easily a 5 out of 5. So let's get off books now, and let's talk about movies and TV shows. So I have 3 apps I'm going to go over for books. For movies and for TV shows. They're all, I think they're pretty like common knowledge, but I'm going to talk about what I like and don't like about each of these. So the first one is IMDb. I've been using IMDb, like the website, since I was like in elementary school, because I've always loved movie trivia and like movie goofs and like random facts about movies. I'm also really good with actor recognition, so I always like to, like, I know them from something, and then like go look and see all the places they've been, and then just have that in the back of my head for whenever you need that information. So I've used like the IMDb like resources forever. I started using the app when I got an iPhone a few years ago, and I actually didn't use an actual like account until a few days ago. I was just using like all the non-signed in stuff. So I won't be talking a whole lot about the stuff you can do with an account, because there's lots of features you can use without having an account. Here comes my cat. He'll make an appearance in a second. So, as far as pros, if you are into just like movie trivia and such, IMDb, it has an absolutely huge wealth of knowledge for you to draw on. So if you like trivia, or you want to read reviews from critics, or you want to see an actor's filmography, it's really, really good for that. It's easy to see if you look up an actor, like you want to see everything that Tom Hanks has been in. It'll show you a list of the movies and the role that he's played in each one. So I think it's really helpful if you really like an actor and you are like, oh, I want to see what else they've been in. Or you just recognize an actor and you're like, they're from that movie, but who are they? And it's really helpful to have that at a glance. IMDb also has a parent guide, which I appreciate. So kind of like the content warnings over on the Storygraph. If you are looking for something that doesn't have like a lot of nudity or cussing or violence or any of those kinds of things, that is all listed in the parent guide for you. It'll tell you, I don't remember all the levels, but there's like none, medium, mild, a lot, something kind of like that, where you can see exactly the extent that things are actually used in the movie. As far as like having an account, like I said, I just got this, so I don't know like the whole extent of features in an account on IMDb, but I know you can favorite people and you can keep up with all of the movies that are coming. So like Christopher Nolan's one of my favorite directors, so I favorited him, and now I can see and I can like get notified whenever he's working on something new or announces a new movie or whatever. So that's really helpful. You can also put in your favorite theater. If you're okay with the app having your location, you can put in your favorite theater, and then you can get all the showtimes for the movie right there on the app. So that's pretty cool. It does also have TV shows. I don't know if it has like all of them, but it does have a lot of them. So if you want to track like TV shows in the same app as movies, IMDb is a good place to do that. The cons, this one kind of suffers because I've been around for so long. I know what it used to be like. IMDb used to have message boards where you could actually participate in a conversation with other people on the app. I know, novel idea, but you could actually talk about the movies with people. And I never participated in them, but I loved reading them. I thought there were a lot of really interesting things that came about from those conversations. I don't remember when this happened, but a few years ago, IMDb removed the message boards from their website and like from their app because of a lot of like toxic and inappropriate and off-topic discussion. So like totally understandable, but it sucks because there's not a replacement for that. So apart from just having like a review and maybe commenting on somebody's review, there's still not a place where you just go and talk to people about the movie you watched. And I have yet to find like an app that really lets you do that. So if anybody has recommendations on book or movie apps that let you actually talk to other people, then please let me know, because I love them both and I would love to discuss with others. But apparently we can't have this. So the lack of message boards, especially since I know they did used to be there, is a downside for me. It's not a very social app. It's good for like your personal like knowledge of movies and tracking of your movies and creating a watch list and stuff. It's good for you personally. It's just not really a good like socialize with others about culture kind of thing. But I still give it a 5. IMDb is still a great app, a huge wealth of knowledge that is definitely a must for anybody who loves the movies. So this next one is also a movie app that I'm a little bit newer to, but I have still been using for a couple years and love, and that is Letterboxd. I found Letterboxd because I wanted to find an app that was similar to Goodreads, but for movies, because I just liked, just for the basic feature of like finding the movies and adding them to lists. I love making lists, like ranked lists or just like collection kind of lists. And Letterboxd is really, really good for making lists. So that tells you anything. Letterboxd is basically Goodreads, but better and for movies. So it's really, really great for lists. It's also a good place to find like more niche films. IMDb is very focused on like popular movies, and Letterboxd is a good place to find things that maybe aren't as well known, because I've like yet to not find something on Letterboxd. There's so many movies on there. It also gives you a distribution of scores, like I said with Goodreads. So it'll tell you like this many people rated it this and rated this, and you can rate half stars. So that's cool. So that's nice. It also shows you where you can watch the movie. So with all these different streaming services, it can be kind of tricky to figure out like, okay, I want to watch this movie. Where do I actually see it? So it'll tell you exactly which streaming services to get on and if you have to rent them or you have to buy them, or whatever. So that's really helpful to have that on there. Letterboxd does have a pro account, but I have been using it for a couple of years and I've never paid for it. So I know there's like some extra cool features that I'm sure would be nice, but you don't need them. The usability of the free app is excellent, which I really appreciate, because so many apps are like, oh yeah, they're free. And then you either like have so many ads, you can't use the app, or there's just really, really limited features. And for Letterboxd, that's not the case. You can get tons of functionality out of it from the free account. It's great. I definitely recommend it for any kind of cinephile because it's absolutely amazing. The only downsides for Letterboxd, the search is kind of questionable. It's not terrible, but sometimes it doesn't find things it should find. It also isolates, like there's a tab for the name of the movie, and then there's a title there's one for like members and one for cast and crew, so like that's sometimes good, but sometimes I'm like search for the actor name, and then it like, oh yeah, I have to go to this other tab, I have to do this other thing. So it's like takes a little bit of work to kind of figure out the search bar, but not terrible. The two like biggest complaints I have: one, the app cannot seem to decide whether TV shows go on the app or not. And I don't know whose decision if this is like the people in charge of the app or if this is users. But some TV shows are on there, like the new Marvel shows, like WandaVision, Loki, Falcon and Winter Soldier. Those are all on there, so you can add them to like your Marvel list or whatever. But a lot of other movies aren't, or some of them will have like just certain seasons on there. Like Sherlock has season 4, but not seasons 1 through 3. So it's like the app hasn't decided do TV shows count. And I know TV shows like are different from movies, so that's why I use a different app for that. But it's just kind of inconsistent if you're trying to like log TV shows. It's either you like exclude all of them or you include all of them, but then you're like missing some. It's just kind of weird. And then my other big complaint is, the same complaint I've had about everything else in this list, and that's lack of anywhere to discuss anything. I feel like the app could really benefit from this. It does have it, like when you leave a review, people can comment on it, but it's kind of hard to follow the conversation because there's not threaded replies. So it's just like a big like list of all the comments. And it's just like, oh, I'm replying to this person. You have to go find their comment. So it's not super conducive to having like actual conversation, as I've said for everything else in this list. So please, Letterboxd, add a discussion area and you will be above 5, because yeah, Letterboxd gets a 5. It's amazing. IMDb and Letterboxd definitely good for different things, but work really, really well together. If you really want to keep track of movies and like just know everything, the two of them together is fantastic. So the last app I'm going to talk about is for TV shows. This one's going to be shorter because there's like hardly anything you can do on this, but it suits my needs, and that's Hobi. So basically Hobi is the equivalent of Letterboxd and Goodreads and the Storygraph, but it's for TV shows. So you search for the TV show and it gives you the list of all the episodes, and they're all like in the certain season they're supposed to be in. So some things I really like about Hobi is that it also, like Letterboxd, tells you where to actually find the show, which I appreciate, because sometimes people tell you, go watch the show, and you're like, well, do I have that platform, or do I have to buy a new one, or whatever? So it's nice to have that on there. It also gives you the release dates for the individual episodes. Like, it tells you when they're all airing, and it has a countdown, like on the homepage. It'll be like 3 days until blank. So that's kind of fun if you're like having a party, when there's not a pandemic, you're having a party or you're like wanting to plan your day around it, like you can see at a glance when the next thing is coming out. So that's cool. It also has all the titles of the episodes and gives you a short synopsis for each one. The cons, I wish there were more like categories. You just have like what's finished, what's still airing, and like what's waiting for a new season. But I wish I could sort, like, because if you add anything to your list, it throws it all in the same list of like to watch. And I wish you could like take some and like move them to like different categories. So like, for example, I was watching CSI with my first TV show like several years ago, and my husband recommended I watch the first 9 seasons. Sounds like so many now. Watch the first 9 seasons and then stop after that. But there's like 12 seasons, so it's just like sitting there unwatched forever because there's not like a place I can move it to say like I'm done watching this. So I just clicked everything and pretended I'd watch the whole thing because that way it would get off of that page. So like the sorting is not great. You also can't see reviews, which I'm kind of sad about. Maybe that might be in the pro account though, because I have the free one and I know a lot of people use the pro one of this, so that might be a pro thing. But for me, I wish I had access to reviews, even if not to write them, at least to read them. You can see like the average rating of a show, so you can see it, like you can rate it 1 to 10. No half stars. You can rate 1 to 10 and you can see the average rating for the show, but you can't see like the distribution of scores, and you can't see any of the individual reviews at all. So it's just like, okay, I got an 8, cool, but that doesn't really tell you anything. And then finally, the last thing I'm kind of complaining about, there's not really any information about the show. Like there is usually like a sentence or two at the very top of the page that tells you like this is the premise of the show, but you don't get like who are the actors starring in it, who directed it, who did the cinematography for it, who did the soundtrack. Like that is all really easily accessible from like on Letterboxd and IMDb, but that's not here at all. Like literally all you get is like a 1-sentence synopsis. You don't get anything more. So I recommend Hobi if you just want something to track your shows, like just to like have a list and a tracker and keep track of like what episode you're on, especially if you're watching like multiple shows at the same time. But as far as actually like learning anything about the shows and any kind of the behind the scenes stuff, it is not a good place, and there's probably a better app out there. So if you know of something like that, I'm always open to trying new things, and I'd be happy to check it out. So I give Hobi a 4 out of 5, so definitely weaker than Letterboxd and IMDb, but does still serve the needs that I need it to serve. So those are my 9 Storyphile recommended apps. Well, not necessarily recommended, the apps that I use, but for books, movies, and TV shows, either consuming or tracking. So I hope this was helpful for you if you're considering getting any of these apps. These are all free. I have not paid for a single one. The only one that really involves like paying for anything is Kindle. You have to actually like buy the books, but there are lots of free ones too, like classics and public domain stuff. So I definitely would love to hear your recommendations down in the comments if you have any more that you think I would enjoy. Otherwise, have a great week, and I will see you next time.